Hi and welcome to The Practice Gap, the podcast for closing the gap between the practice you have and the one that you want. I'm Elisabeth, a chiropractor, a business owner, coach and entrepreneur on a mission to help you move from frustration and overwhelm to clarity, focus and joy in practice. 3, 2, 1, yeah. Well, hello Atle and welcome back.
Thank you.
We are glad that you are still here from Stavanger.
This is good.
I would love to pick your brain about this subject. When you are a new chiropractor or worked for a couple of years and you realize that the skills you have, adjusting skills, could be better. Where do I start and what do I do and how do I become an excellent adjuster?
Oh boy. Well, it all starts with one thing, and that's visualization. I tell people, whenever I adjust someone, and even after 31 years, and you think this should be just totally automatic and stuff, it's like I put my X-ray goggles on, because I can, if I'm setting up on an L5, maybe I'll choose a mammillary contact. I can visualize the L5 under my hand. I can picture where the spinous is and the multifidi and the facet joint and the disc. So I visualize anatomy, both statically and also dynamically. The biomechanics, that's all. It's like a video that goes in my head. And then my favorite subject in high school was physics, and I love vectors, and I can see the different vectors. So visualization for me is key, and it's number one.
What artifacts should I use to visualize it? Is it enough with the spines we all have in the chiropractic office, or is there videos online? How can I be a better visualizer on how the bones moves naturally?
And all of the above will help you, but I really like the really good plastic models that are out there. Mm-hmm. And when I mention a good plastic models, the spine that has a really hard fixed plastic disc, forget about it. If you can find a spine that is movable, both in the sacroiliac joints and also between the different vertebrae, but it has like this sponge material. Mm-hmm. Those are so good, and yeah, you're gonna wear them out, so you're gonna have to buy new ones after a few years if you bend and adjust this thing. But it's worth it.
Do you have a brand that I could put as a link? Nope. No.
I don't, but some, you feel it. You pick up one of these that is just hard plastic. Everything's hard plastic, and it just doesn't feel right. And nothing is compatible with what you feel on a real patient. But the ones with the sponge material, and also one where you can loosen the sacroiliac joint, so you can actually check for motion in the sacroiliac joints. It's really important to have one of those.
So if I would order something online, I could send off an email asking what kind of material is it. So, what are some questions I should drop down in my little email to the company?
I think the most important is that you have that sponge material as your discs.
Yeah.
And then, but they offer these at all kinds of chiropractic conferences and stuff too, and usually they have both, and you can actually go and test both, and you immediately feel the difference between the two.
Yeah. So the take-home message: go to a seminar.
Yeah, there you go.
Talk to the vendors, feel the spine, and see if it's good enough, and then invest in them because they are quite expensive.
And that's correct. And another thing, I think people should have these anatomy models of the extremities as well. Mm-hmm. The ankle joint, the elbow, the shoulder, a knee, and especially when it comes to the ankle and foot, you have some that they're German made and they're really solid and they'll last a lifetime, but you can't move the individual bones. But you have some that are hooked up with some kind of springy material, like an elastic band, where you can actually move the individual bones in relationship to each other. Those are great. But those that are wired together with really hard metal wires, forget it. That's just one rigid piece that you can't do much with. So it has to be movable. It has to be spongy. It has to be elastic, so you can actually play with the joints in relationship to each other.
So I realize now I have to get a new foot because my foot is super rigid
That's
downstairs, and it will also last for a lifetime. So the take-home message here is do not get anything that lasts for a lifetime. Okay, so now I have my great spine. I'm moving it around. I'm visualizing. What do I do then?
There are two main things when it comes to the spine. Look at the facet joints and their orientation. And you look at the facet joints in the lumbar spine, how they interlock, and how in extension they'll prevent the body from over-rotating, and how when you flex, it's easier to rotate. And you see that a lot of the cases we get in, especially with acute low back pain, is usually a combination when people have flexed their low back and turned at the same time. And just looking at the facet joints, you can kind of understand why people are more vulnerable there than if you're in a little bit more extended or natural state. And if you go further up and you look at the facet joints in the thoracic spine, you see how flat they are, and you understand why a rotational component is much more key in the thoracic spine than it is in the lumbar spine. And then you move up to the cervicals again, and you have like a hybrid of the two, where the angle is slanted a little bit more forward, plus you need to encounter also the joint Shalushka that you have with the body between the vertebra up there. And then it makes sense why we need to approach these different areas with a little bit different technique and with a little bit different mindset, because setting a mid-dorsal is not the same as setting a mid-lumbar or a mid-cervical. Understanding and visualizing the anatomy and biomechanics, after you play around with this, you'll understand a little bit more of the biomechanics. It makes you understand why you have to do the things you do. There's another thing. If you put the spine into its normal position, where you have a lumbar lordosis and you have the original thoracic kyphosis and then the cervical lordosis, if you look at the plane line of the disc, it also makes sense, especially if you lay it down. Say you lay it down in a side posture position on your bench, and you understand when you set up on an L5 that in order to move that L5, you have to lift the vertebra a little bit, just to make sure that you don't jam the facets. And then you see the plane line of the disc goes from superior to inferior. So you need to bring your elbow out, and you actually need to drive it a little bit down. And then as you move up the spine, if you're going to do more in side posture through the lumbars, you need to be more or less straight at the L3, and then you need to lift much more when you come up to L1 or T12. In addition to the facet joints, that you also have the plane line of the disc there, because it's going to help you. Because if you can stay parallel to the plane line of the disc, it's much easier to adjust. And another thing, not all people have a perfect spine. And especially with our elderly patients, they are really kyphotic. And there's no way you can get any lordosis or real lordosis in their neck or in their lumbars. And then you need to envision where they are. And then those plane lines of those discs is not going to be the same as like a neutral or young spine. And this is all stuff you need to kind of envision.
How often should I look at the spine? Every morning I should before my first patient to take out the spine and put it down on the table? It's nice to have it close to where you work, so sometimes you can glance over at it and stuff. But it's, you do this, you don't actually need a physical spine in your hand, because that's where the visualization comes in. Yeah. And you can actually envision this just in your brain, and you can close your eyes if you want to or whatever. I learned something as a student in the States. They talked about focus and intent. And when you're properly focused and you have a goal in mind of what you're going to do, and you can, picture this in your head, you don't need the physical spine, but it is still, after 31 years of practice, I have my spine standing, and sometimes I'll pull it up and I'll look at it for my own sake, or
I use it a lot to show the patients, and it's a great tool for patient education. Well, I feel so weird when I'm in this position, and like especially in side posture, they're afraid they're going to fall off the bench or something. And then sometimes I'll take the spine over and I'll show them why I have to do this, how I have to roll it over. They see on this plastic model why I do what I do, and they're like, okay, I get it. I'll be good. I'll try and do my best, you know. So it's a great tool, you know, to kind of also enlighten the patients.
How about speed? Is there a shortcut? Practice
important.
speed. I know that is super important.
You know, I used to do track as a kid, you know, and I was a decathlete, but I was best at like sprinting and explosive stuff. So that goes hand in hand with chiropractic. For me, when they're chiropractors and they want to become the best chiropractors they can, what they train is ultramarathon or long distance road biking or swimming. And you know what? I think those are wonderful things that people should do if they really, really enjoy them. But it doesn't stimulate the part of the nervous system that you need to stimulate if you want to become as quick as possible, because the quicker we can be in the delivery of our adjustments, the less force we need, and it's also going to be more comfortable for the patients. And as we grow older, there are two main things that take place, and it's you lose muscle mass. I mean, as a doctor, the patient does too. And the other thing is speed and coordination. And we need, as chiropractors, if we want to really be on top of the game, we need to stimulate this the whole time. And actually, just by doing the work we do every day, we stimulate that more than the regular people. But I also do specific exercises when I'm in the gym, where I go fast with my concentric moves and slow with my eccentric moves, because those two things really stimulate what we call the fast muscle fibers, or the neuromuscular connection between the fast.
Could you give an example of something I could do?
If you do, for example, push-up, and you don't have to do it on the floor, which could be really, really hard, but you can do it at an angle against the wall.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I always tell when I instruct people to do this, that when they lower themselves in towards the wall, they should spend more time going towards the wall than when they go out again. I have them go really slowly towards the wall, and then they explode and push as hard as they can. So you kind of swing out really quick. And you need to be at an angle where you don't fall on your butt, you know. But you also have to be at an angle that is not like, because if you're on the floor, this is really hard to do, to actually be able to push yourself up faster than lowering it. But the strong ones, they can do that. Or they can clap. They can push and clap, and, because that gives you that really fast concentric.
So in the push-up, you push and you clap,
and then you. That's a way of doing it to make sure you have enough explosive force. Yeah. And every time I walk through a door, the way I turn the door, I mean, I do this with everything I do, and it sometimes scares my wife and people around me, because it feels a little bit abrupt, but it's just, I always play with stimulating these things.
On that note, as we are growing older and become slower and less muscle mass, what is the oldest chiropractor you have met that is still in practice and give good adjustments? That's interesting. I just met this Swiss chiropractor a few days ago, because I was down in Lugano and I taught chiropractic technique to the Swiss Chiropractic Association. And this 84-year-old chiropractor walks over and he goes, "I'm the oldest practicing chiropractor in Switzerland, and I still enjoy it." And you know, he was one of those vibrant, fun, older gentlemen, you know, that you could see his eyes were beaming, and he thought this was so much fun. And this is the kind of 84-year-old I'd like to be. Yeah. I've known people in Norway that were past 90 and they still practiced on their friends and family and neighbors, and they didn't have an official practice anymore, you know, but it was a lifestyle, you know. But it's kind of, and you know this too, it's hard work, and it's hard on your shoulders and your back. So unfortunately, a few of us will have to
throw in the towel a little bit too early in their career because they're actually worn out. But if you really, really enjoy what you do, if you stay in okay physical health and take care of yourself as a doctor, we should be able to practice way into our retirement age if we want to. Closing
off, how long time or how much time will it take? I'm an OK adjuster. I've been working for 2 years. I know how to find the subluxations, and I start now to visualize, and I start doing exercises. On the average, how long will it take for me to become a good adjuster?
You know that some people pick up this like crazy when they're students, and they just seem to have a knack for it. Others are born with more like 10 thumbs, you know,
yep.
And they never really become brilliant. We can all become better. Sometimes I think we make things a little bit too hard for us because too many of us visualize the adjustment as a form of acceleration. And with acceleration, you start with the speed of 0, and then your speed is at the highest at the end of the acceleration. That is really hard to do, especially if you're in a low back area and stuff like that, to try and muscle or accelerate a vertebra into position. That is hard. What we can do is to let Newton or gravity help out. If you walk into a pelvic bench, the patient is on the side. If you walk in tall, you carry a lot of potential energy. And what you can do is to let your upper body, actually a little bit of the whole body, start falling towards the ground. And then you abruptly brake. What happens then, it's not an acceleration, but it's actually this abrupt braking that gives the adjustment. And where is the speed the highest when you brake? In the beginning. So, instead of having to muscle something in place, you're already there, close to the paraphysiological space. And the only thing you need to do is it's like you, as the chiropractor, is more like the one pool ball, you know, that hits the other pool ball, which is the patient segment. And you don't need a lot of force or anything like that. And you have the speed, you have the momentum, you have everything you need. And it's all delivered to you by Newton, you know. and we put too much force and hard work into this. Be smart. And how long is it going to take for someone who's been out for 2 years? For someone, they'll be really good after 2 years, and others will have to work for 20 more, really hard and intensely before they're at a place where I'd like to see them.
Yep.
They say you're a good driver of a car after 7 years, and I don't know who came up with this, but maybe maybe 7 years is like a
magic number. I love that. Thank you so much, Atle, for sharing all your wonderful knowledge with me and all the listeners.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And next week we are going to talk about success factors.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. To make it in practice. See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.